Since during the time of Julius Caesar and his deification around 44 BC, the month of his birth is memorialized in the name of the month itself, July, which was added to the previous calendar. In addition, August became the name of the following month in honor of Julius' adopted son, Augustus, who inherited the empire's rulership. The purported reason for developing a new calendar and switching the world to it was based on the need to accurately calculate the annual date for the Christian holiday of Easter, which is in itself a pagan amalgamation ritual founded upon the Jewish Passover. The church the church calculated the annual date for the Christian holiday of Easter. The church mathematicians discovered an error of accuracy deterioration after reviewing the calendar and scrutinizing words, and scrutinizing the astronomical data that had become available to them by the 16th century, which reasoned that an adjustment was necessary. Where am I?
Do you think this is hard to understand, or do you get it?
I get it. They just said a lot of facts with me. I mean,
do you know who
one
wrote
would
this?
like to calculate.
Do you know who wrote this? Isaac Newton.
He wrote all this stuff?
Yeah, it was natural philosophy.
Yeah, that's Isaac Newton. I wonder what form of Isaac Newton wrote this. He has different forms, I guess.
It's transliterated from his unpublished works.
That's very good.
Yeah,
he was an amazing philosopher. I know that.
Yeah.
He was a great teacher.
He wrote about the Federal Reserve Bank.
So that's basically translations of his writing.
He wrote a lot about the church that nobody knows. He was against the policy of the regime of the Catholics at that time.
Yes.
But he knew he didn't want to be expelled or get his head chopped off, which they were doing. Plenty of, which
they're
they
going to do today too.
Well,
in a different
everyone
way,
will do it whenever they want to, but they will have to pay the
new
karma.
Opinions and new
they will pay the karma for that. They did it to Sir Thomas More, and he was, the writer of Utopia.
He's the writer. So, ladies and gentlemen, there's your answer. This is
he
Newton's
disagreed
writings.
with gold being used,
and
the premise in there where he switched gold for iron. Iron became the currency.
Why did he?
But they chopped his head off for it.
Why did he refuse gold?
Well, he's a rebel, and but read more from Newton's calculations
specific
and explanations of this incredible system that we're in.
The margin of error was editing more and more partial days with each passing year. Due to the overall difference in time span between the abstract, idealized, earthly calendar and the real Earth movement in space around the sun, there is not a whole numbered amount of days that the Earth makes it returns to the same point in its orbit around the sun. These decidedly using the equinoctial point, vernal equinox, to be exact, as per who is it doing this?
I think it's done. I think that's the end. That's the end. No, that's the end. I ended with the vernal equinox point. That they choose that. You'd have to pick one point and see if it returns back to that point. But every time you get back to that point, the Earth is slightly off from that because it's not like permanent gears.
You mean explain to the audience? You mean you have to choose
it's
a point?
It's hard to explain. You have to see it.
On these life days, you have to choose a point in the past that is circulate.
You make observations.
Comes back
Listen,
to that point,
from
and
a
this way you
telescope.
can calculate the years.
From a telescope, which a lot was developed by Isaac Newton. From the telescope, you have these observers look and see the points of light, and they measure it according to the constellations, because we don't think the constellations move that much. They don't seem to. Those are fixed stars, fixed points of light. So you look at the moving ones, which are wandering stars, the planets, and the sun. So we're a wandering star that goes around the sun. And we can tell because we create a model, like the structure of what we're inside of. We must be inside of this thing, okay? But even Isaac Newton warned us that we're not inside of a clock. It's not like that, because the clock is more...
Time is fake, basically saying.
No, he's not saying that.
No,
the warning is because we're not inside of a solid clock. Everything is
the concept
flowing.
Of time.
No, all he's saying is, like, be careful not to look at the universe like a clock, because everything is adjustable and fluid.
Exactly. It's not is like exact and like it's not really.
So a clock is really artificial, ideal way of measuring time.
That's the illusion that
they measure time. But however, it's not absolute, because what's more absolute is the bigger system. We're inside of a bigger clock, which is not like a clock, and we figured this out. So this one I'm trying to explain about calendars and civilization and history. We need to understand these things as I'm giving you a review. The title of this, from part 1, if you watch, this is part 2 of video. Part 1 stated the title, where I give a brief overview, and this is just the first, 5 pages without illustration. With illustration, it's like 7 pages, the first 7 pages of a chapter, which is I give a brief overview for right now, circa 2014, because this understanding that's given and the translation where I build upon Isaac Newton, I build upon Solomon, I build upon Roosevelt in there, and the Federal Reserve.
Great leaders of the past.
Well, we have to understand why banking is involved with civilization and the calendar and history, because banking follows the flow of time. Each day you have to calculate.
The most sacred bank at the time. That's true.
The component within banking is what? The movement of money. Money doesn't exist without time. Remember the axiom, which is not an absolute. It says time is money. It says that, okay? Yes. So therefore money has to be calculated according to time. What is it? There is a formulation called interest rates. Interest.
Oh yeah, that's
interest is a huge control. But interest, however, is as a measurement and it's basically calculus. It's a percentage, and it gets more complicated. But if you isolate just interest, what is you compounding? You're compounding upon a percentage rate. You take an amount
and you add
at any given time, and you say, here's the percentage. Are you gonna compound it? Are you gonna calculate it according to each day, each month, each year?
And that's how the banks make their money, because they can play along with it back and forth the way they want.
Right. So through history, time flow, given enough time, they transfer from 1 year the bank still exists, or they pass it on to another bank, that they're just shifting the banks into another bank's hands within this whole huge Federal Reserve System that's existed now. This is finished the 100th year of it. If 100 years means
here's something funny, like just bring
this is the 101st year.
Let's bring it back to this life right now on this planet, you know, in this 2014.
We are, yeah.
You know, did you know that when you go to the bank to deposit money into your own account, do you know that the banks make you pay a fee of depositing money into your own account?
That's another way they make money, yeah. For every action.
You see, if in a holy,
for every
in a
action,
sacred,
like Bob Marley says, for every action, so they're taking something. Every time you want an action, you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
So the bank is charging you for all these things that they should do anyhow for free.
Exactly.
The bank
they're
should only make
to get you to pay more.
But someone should make
basically
a law that the reason why the bank can do business, what they're already making money on, one thing.
Because
their
the
business
system allows that to them.
No, I'm saying their business is to hold the money. They're already that's the benefit of their business. That's it. They should have no other way of making money. They already hold the money. And what are they doing with it? They're using fractional reserve banking, which is 9 times. That means whatever somebody gives them, adds it all up with everybody, then they use it 9 times to make loans to businesses, governments, and everybody else. They're already making this much money. And yet it is the most lucrative business, if you want to call it a business. It's more than a business.
And if you look at the time of the
foundation of business itself.
If you look at, before I say temple, I would say
it's not
look at the sacred
business.
way of doing economy. It says in the Torah, you're not supposed to take interest.
Well, we're going to end
somebody that loan you money, like for
exactly. We're going to end on this, and
so,
the Muslims are against it, which is the reason why there's always fighting with Muslims. Again, other than the fact that the Muslims have violence within them, just like the Christians have violence within, why they go with the sword and chop people up during the Crusades, and reason why the Jews during Solomon's time and afterwards used to chop people up, chop their own people up, killed Zechariah, for example, and all the prophets, and his blood boiled up at the Holy Temple of collecting 666 gold talents, but the blood was boiling up because what? They chopped him and they killed him. And it's all religions do this, but the Muslims and the Jews are supposed to, and the Christians are supposed to be against usury in the bank. So what's the bank? The bank is another religion in itself that has become a replacement. That is another development, as is written here, from the Holy Temple for collection of riches. It was.
And from whom? Mainly from the
Holy Temple. The Holy Temple was a banking institution. There you have it. Part 2 of the video. Read the rest of the book so you know what's going on.
Sacred banking institution. It was holy. It was great. It was for the highest purpose, and it was for the goodness of the people.
We have to. We have to analyze this. Why did King Solomon have so many enemies? Don't answer. And why did his son came along later? His wicked, not as good son, who could not live up to him. Of course, he had a lot of pressure, but Rehoboam, and the one that broke off, who ran away, he originally worked for him. Jeroboam worked for Solomon, but ran away to Egypt and only came back after he was dead. But just look at Jeroboam and Rehoboam. Rehoboam is quoted as saying, you know how my father Solomon was rough with you and collected taxation and put a burden on you. And he said this with his boldness and brashness. He said, but I'm going to make 10-fold times your burden. Your back will practically break. They're going to break. Solomon, my father, was nothing. He said, my pinky is thicker than his loins, and I'm going to break you down and collect and collect. So he really pumped up the bank. Did he not? Think about that quote. I leave it with this, and if anyone's interested, you read the rest of the book. But if you're not interested, however, if you want to stay in the Kali Yuga and the darkness through the ignorance, then you don't have to read it. So, in fact, I just give them a little video, give them a little crumb, because I don't want them to read my book. I don't want them to know. Because the abuse that will come from the wisdom that I'm putting out, the abuse in the wrong hands, I don't want it to go into their hands.
You go into
That's
business
right,
voices,
because as many more
it's good. Debate is a
enemies
good
will
thing.
come out of the woodwork.
It eventually leads to the truth. Eventually.
Oh, will it? I'm a little bit negative and a little bit pessimistic these days.
It's okay, I can understand.
When you know what you know, it doesn't look very good.
Okay, take care and think about...
Who's the enlightened one?
The enlightened ones.
What
That should be in another video.
That'll be another video. Where are the enlightened ones?